Welcome back, everybody, to another movie review collaboration conducted by A Little History, Cloak and Dagger podcast, as well as Jammy History. Let's call it something like, I don't know, like A Little Cloak and Jam review or something like that. We're going to come up with a name for this, boys.
A Little Cloak and Jam.
Oh, I love that. A Little Cloak and Jam.
I'm going to trademark it now. We'll be paying him royalties by the end of this.
100%. It's a great pleasure to be here once again, sharing the space with these esteemed gentlemen and talking about the epic 2016 flop, Gods of Egypt. As we are recording in early December, for me it's the 4th, and for my comrades it's the 3rd. It seems almost right to have to take a look at this flick during the silly season, because this truly is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, I mean, this film, calling it a flop, was it ever meant to seriously be a success? I can't imagine how they pitched it to be a success. I don't know.
I think the amount of money they threw at it, I reckon they assumed that it would be.
That just the cast alone. Just think
the cast would have been really expensive.
Really expensive.
No, definitely.
I read somewhere that they did the filming for this movie in Australia, and I think as a way to kind of either make the film cheaper or and also probably adhere to the structure, the contracts for filming and all that. They needed to have X amount of Australian actors in that.
Really?
So that's why you have like, Brian Brown in there. I was like, what? How are you Osiris, mate? It was very odd, very odd. And Jeffrey Rush just being really weird.
Yeah, Jeffrey Rush. That was so random. I did not see that coming.
Oh God, yeah.
It's quite an intense performance. Comparing to all of his other performances, it's a strange one.
All right, well, we better officially start this story, guys.
We're too eager to complain about this film.
And so, what better way to start this than having a little, a little recap, little intro to the thing, and then we can talk about or continue talking about what was strange and not so great, and then we'll probably try to pick some good bits out of this film as well.
We might run out of things to compliment this film.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a really long list of complaints, so we can just stick with those, and then
I think we're about to find some gleaming lights, surely, to come out of it. So our story begins with our narrator talking about the forming of Egypt and the gods which rule over humankind, but also walk among them. A stunning sweeping shot of the Nile settles upon a brilliant city built at the water's edge. The camera zooms down onto a busy street, and we are introduced to Aladdin. That's pretty much who he is. He's got a real name. His name is Beck, played by Brenton Thwaites, but he's pretty much Aladdin in all but name, except he's not funny at all. He's my favourite.
Such a good take. He really is just Aladdin.
Yeah.
It is at this point that the narrator voice tells us that he is Beck. And we're all like, okay, so this guy survives whatever happens in this film and lives to tell the tale. Great. Good thing he's not an insufferable douche with no depth or character development the whole movie. Oh, wait, that's exactly what he is. Hooray. Anyway, Beck, who we are informed later is a highly skilled and experienced thief, goes on to obviously steal, in broad daylight, in a crowded marketplace, a dress for his love interest Zaya, played by Courtney Eaton.
With the owner of the dress also looking directly at him.
I know.
He almost pauses
Idiot.
and waits to make eye contact with the owner, and then goes, "Yeah, stealing."
Step one, you assert dominance over the person you're robbing.
And Zaya wholeheartedly believes that the gods are all-powerful and watch over them, though she is 100% fine with receiving stolen goods from her man. And the two talk about Beck's lack of faith in the gods and, more importantly, that they will be going to a coronation the following day. This will be a very important day for Osiris, randomly played by Brian Brown, the king of the gods and all of Egypt, and generally a pretty great guy. He is to give up his crown and bestow it upon his son Horus, played by Nikolai Coster-Waldau, and everyone's humming for it. By the way, if you were expecting the Osiris story of, I was at a party hosted by my dodgy brother's set and got locked in a box exactly measured to my specifications, then got chopped into pieces by that brother, only to be reformed by my sister and my sister wife, brought back to the point of being alive enough for my sister wife to conceive a child with me and then let me die and become Lord of the Underworld, you may be a little disappointed.
That would have been
Anyways.
film, it was that.
That would have been a better film. We should have done
I know.
that.
That would have been so
Where's the
funny.
box? Where's the box? Anyways, we pass to Horus, who wakes up in a bit of a stupor, having partying it up all night, or the night before, after returning from a victorious hunt. He grabs a bath and is visited by Hathor, played by Elodie Yung, the goddess of love, and the two of them have a little make-out party in the bath. Horus nearly asks Hathor to marry him, but they are interrupted due to the ceremony starting soon. We pass to the ceremony, and all the people and gods turn up, making offerings for the occasion, and everyone seems merry. Beck and Zaya are also there, and Zaya shows again her willingness to accept Beck's open thievery, even taking stolen items from Beck and making no attempts to return them. What is up with this girl? Anyway, upon the dais, Osiris talks about how everything's groovy and everyone is equal and all are welcome in the afterlife and shit. He's about to crown Horus a king until the party is busted up by Set, played by Gerard Butler, who challenges Osiris to fight him. And he's like, "Oi, brother Osiris, you've reigned over the lands of Egypt for ages, and everything is groovy, and everyone seems to be happy and content. You're clearly not very good at this king stuff, mate. It's my turn, and don't you go trying to hug me, because if you do, I'll give you the old stabby stab." And Osiris, being a pretty peaceful guy, is and being deaf to Set's warnings, attempts to give his brother a big cuddle, to which Set gives him the pointy business, killing him in full view of the assembly. Horus is then challenged and defeated by some shiny shields, and Set takes his eyes, to which they're pretty important to him. And Set is about to kill Horus when the goddess Hathor begs Set to spare his life. Set is now ruling the roost, and everything seems pretty glum in the land of Egypt for our crew. Oh, and a little later, Zaya is killed, and Beck is all about trying to bring her back to life and believes that Horus will be able to make this happen. They team up and head out on the adventure to defeat Set, restore Horus, and bring Zaya back to life. So now that we've got the gist of it, let's have a closer look at this flick, hey?
That is such a great opening. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
I can tell. Yeah, you should narrate. This is a really good. You have a career.
That would have been a better narration of someone just who doesn't like the film, just going, "Yeah, who's this weirdo? Like, what's he up to?"
Oh, did it come out that I didn't like that film? Oh, I didn't.
I thought you loved it. I had no idea.
It was so jolly, so jolly. What do we reckon? Do we want to go through what we liked first, or do we want to go through what irked us?
Be a pretty short section. Should we start with the likes?
What did we like?
Who gets to go first? Who gets the lighting?
Well, actually, given the kind of who we all are as podcasters, what did you guys think of the line at the beginning, which is like before history? Which I don't really understand how that makes sense. This is
Cringe.
a time before history. So obviously no one was writing anything down. Everyone was like, yeah, I'm sure we'll just remember all this stuff. No one has to be a historian. No one has to take note of what's going on.
Yeah, you know that room that was full of scrolls. They were all just blank because they just hadn't figured out how to write, history down on them yet.
Yeah, such an advanced society.
And then one day someone will start it and they'll be like, "Oh, this is great."
Someone goes, maybe we should have recorded some of this stuff when we had the gods wandering around. Now they've gone. We're like, now this is the time to start writing histories.
That's so true.
Oh man, I loved it when Horus smacks Beck like 5 meters across the ground when he doesn't get his water. I love that.
I think Beck takes a lot of punishment and is completely fine throughout so much of this. There's that bit where he in the pyramid where he's stealing Horus's eye back, and then he falls quite a long way and then hits a bunch of treasure, which is metal and would be really painful, but he bounces through it like it's the kind of Scrooge McDuck pool of coins and you can just swim through it.
Yeah,
he takes he should be dead in many instances.
So true.
and he just keeps bouncing back. He's like, "Yep, I'm all good, no sweat." You're like, "Dude, come on, show us something."
Yeah, I mean, you think that I kept thinking broken ribs, internal bleeding, broken ankle, snapped neck. You literally could go through the whole film and list the injuries he would have sustained from these things.
I mean, no wonder then why throughout most of the film, Horus kept turning to him going, "Are you sure you're not a god?"
Well, quite.
He was probably just thinking the same thing.
It's like, I'm beating the shit out of you, and you seem to be fine. Although with some of the gods though are a little bit lackluster. Like, think like Nephthys, Set's ex-wife or wife. Actually, she's still married the whole way through. When she's like, "Oh, you're a dick. I'm gonna fly away very slowly," and then he's like, grabs her wing and then like gently moves her back into the room, and she's like, "I'm incapacitated." You're like, "What the fuck? Come on."
Yeah, they all kind of suck, don't they? None of them are actually that talented or that powerful. And you think they're gods, but they do seem to. I mean, Osiris dies from just a stab, whereas you've got Beck surviving everything, and then Osiris one stab from behind, and that's it. He's done. One of the most powerful gods, the king of gods, the king of all Egypt, dead in a second. And then his great scene where like that final death, he's like, now your story has just begun, and then turns away and dies. I mean, great acting there. I mean, it's there's just so much quality in that.
I kept hearing Brian Brown saying like pterodactyl, son. That's a pterodactyl. It's from an Aussie. Did you guys get over there? It's a movie called Two Hands.
No, that's new on me.
That's for the Aussies over there, guys. It's a really good one of Heath Ledger's like really good Aussie films that he did before I think it was like at the stage where he was breaking into Hollywood as well. He's like some like petty criminal, and Brian Brown's like playing with his son, and he's like some mob boss. And it's like, I think he's just killed some dude, or he's like talking about organising somebody's death. He's like, "See that, son? That's a pterodactyl." And the kid's like, "Wow, dinosaurs!" It's Anyway, don't worry.
So that's what was going through your head when you saw
King
of all Egypt
in his final moments.
Important expositions happening. I'm like, oh, dinosaurs.
To give it one bit of praise, I'm not sure if this is praise, but because I didn't, unlike the last review we did, which was on Immortals, God, I almost forgot the name of it, where I know quite a lot about the Greek pantheon, I know very little about the ancient Egyptian god stories, so actually I wasn't getting as annoyed with it as I was expecting to be. So I was kind of like, oh, can they do this? Oh, I don't know the story. That story you related at the beginning about him Osiris being chopped up and then getting remade so he could have a son. I didn't know that. So actually, that kind of thing actually made me enjoy it more because I wasn't looking for the problems.
Yeah. Well, that I did an episode on that one. That's the only one I've done on Egyptian mythology, and it's basically a very important one in Egyptian culture because that was about letting the people know that the king or the pharaoh that's their right to rule. It's basically why the king or the pharaoh is in charge, because they're ordained by the gods. It's basically like them portraying their right to rule, but it's one of those stories that went for like it changed a fair bit. So there was points where I was like, that's a bit strange. That's not how that's not how I remember it. So they've definitely taken some liberties and made their own.
Sure.
Which I didn't mind them doing that. Kind of like how they did with Immortals, how they were like, okay, we're going to make our own unique story. And some changes I thought was fine. I've actually put this down as a negative for this review, but I'll put it as I'll mention it now. It's to do with Nut and Geb. So Nut is the sun, is the sky. She's basically portrayed as like a naked female covered in stars, which she's actually in the beginning where he's like, before history, the gods walked among men and they were large. You see, like Nut there's a picture of her arching over four or five kneeling blokes. Yeah. And I'm like, why is she there if you're not talking about her? Because but you can't have, I get Hollywood would be like, all right, we can't really have a movie where the sky bangs the earth and they have kids, because you're like, okay, how do we shoot this?
Is that it? Is that what happens? Is that's their origin? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Nut is the sky, and Geb is the earth, and they got down and dirty a fair bit, and then Ra, who is their father, is like, dudes, you can't be doing this. This ain't cool. Plus, I'm not a fan because you guys will probably have kids, and then they'll challenge me for the right to rule. So none of that. And so they put who is it? Shu, I think it is Shu, the god of the air. So they put like the air in between the sky and the earth to stop them from having sex. who is their uncle, I think it is. So it's a bit awkward.
That's quite intense. That's a strange family.
So I was like, I can see why they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Doesn't the film say Horus is the god of air?
God of the wind. God of wind.
Is that different? God of the wind isn't the same as God of air.
They share some things around with it, yeah. Because Hathor's like meant to be the goddess of love and just that. And you're like, well, she's got like strong ties to the underworld. She's kind of like a bit of a Persephone.
Yeah.
Demeter's daughter. She's got links to that. So she's got, her role as being like, love and all that, but also has ties to the underworld and the afterlife.
She seemed a bit more complex than just Venus in another form.
Although Egyptian mythology is one of the fewest things I've got a lot of knowledge in. So I might be completely wrong about this one, guys. But
well, you know a lot more than everyone else here, I think.
Well, none of us are going to correct you, right?
Yeah.
We're listening. I feel like I'm in a lecture. It was amazing.
I'm the same. I'm the same as Will in this one, where I'm like, well, I've heard of some of them, but other than that, basically nothing. So it was quite good just to see it.
Yeah,
and I was like, some of it obviously will not be correct, but I imagined a lot of it might be.
You probably know more than the writers and director of this film, so there's something, at least.
Oh, yeah, well.
I just want to hear the initial business pitch. Like, if it was anything like what Patrick has been spouting about, I hope that was included. And they all just sat there like, no. Can we simplify it, please?
Yeah, one of the writers looks like the scientist dude out of Independence Day with like the glasses and the long disheveled hair. He's like, now the sky. Think about it, guys. The sky and the earth, they're going to bang. And the guy's like, get him out of the room. This is not going to fly.
God. But you've got to worry. You sort of wonder about the researchers on this production, because having worked in TV on research projects for sort of documentaries, and you kind of go, you're always the one who has to stop the creativity getting too far, because you're like, no, this is the history. You got to do it like this. So you can just imagine there were a couple of those guys on set, probably go, for fuck's sake, what are we doing? This is going to ruin our reputations.
Well, the lead researchers would send in, recommendations about what they should do to make them more accurate, but he also wrote them all in hieroglyphics, so it never got past the creative teams. They were just there like, no idea.
That must have been it. Oh, I love that. So does anyone else have any other positives for this particular piece?
Yeah, I do. I thought some of the panning shots were really good. I thought most far away shots looked pretty good.
Without any people in them.
Like with the CGI and all that. And I suppose the costume design in general, I thought was pretty all right. Although I will take a leaf out of Patrick's book from the Immortals episode, with your gripes about hats and just the crowns. Crowns. I was like, come on, guys. Like it can't hurt you too much to have something a little bit more like pharaonic, like something like Egyptian to wear, and sort of less.
It suited the race of the actual actors who were portraying these Egyptian gods. Maybe they were worried about cultural appropriation, which that's the whole problem with the entire film. But maybe they didn't want to go that far.
It's weird that was the spot where they were like, oh, you know what, we should be a little bit more sensitive about this. You're like, this is the time.
Someone in the fashion department, the wardrobe, went, yeah, no, we can't get away with that. Like, clearly this set is clearly Scottish, so we can't put him up in real Egyptian clothes.
That was amazing.
Yeah. I did like, one of the other things, I don't know if I really liked it, but I thought it was funny, but when in the coronation, the crowd were holding up signs, like at a football match or something, but they were like, just like hieroglyphs or just like nice Egyptian art, but they were waving them like on cardboard, like going, yeah, love these guys. I thought that was quite good, because that's maybe what they would do if you could see your gods and you don't really know how to act, so you just wave a bunch of signs. Maybe that would be what they would do. So I guess I liked that kind of.
Well, they can't record their history, but they can, write signs for to show up at the coronation. So,
well, they'd write it all down on the signs, and then like 2 weeks later, someone like one of their children might be there. Like, what's the sign for? And they go, I don't remember.
Very short memory spans.
Very, very short.
I have to admit, I actually quite liked the very wise god. I can't remember his name now. Thoth.
Toth. Yeah.
Toth. Thank you. I actually, at first, I thought it was a bit annoying, but actually, he has some great one-liners. And I kind of got on. I kind of saw him as like the Sherlock Holmes of the pantheon, and I quite liked that. So yeah, I mean, he sort of lightened the mood a bit it kind of became a bit more comedic. Whereas everyone else was trying to be serious, he just kind of came across as a bit sassy, and I quite like that.
Yeah.
Kind of,
I think a lot of Chadwick's lines, like one-liners, and all, I think they landed probably the best. Like there was a lot of shit one-liners in this film, and they were either for no reason or just not funny. And I think Chadwick he was given some good lines, and you can tell he had fun with the role as well. Like he is definitely enjoying playing the God of Wisdom.
Yeah. It's good that I feel like he was one of the only gods that felt like his personality matched what he was god of. Or the rest of them were just gods of, like God of the Wind. Nothing he did had anything to do with wind. Set was god of the desert. I don't know what they officially called him, but he was just a jerk. Like none of them really did anything that was that associated to who they were. Which was actually, I think that was also a problem with Immortals. They were all just kind of buff men and women who looked good. That was it. That was the entire requirement to be a god.
Yeah, I'd seen that when Jared Butler said that when he found out he was going to be in the film, he immediately went and started bodybuilding. It was like his first reaction. He was like, oh, I gotta have the abs for the part now, and just ran off to the gym to start working out. And apparently that was all he was doing in the run up to it. And I was like, yeah, fair enough.
Well, I think there's 10 years between 300 and this film. So 10 years is a lot.
Wow.
I mean, he must be, I don't know how old he is, but he, 30 and 40, let's say, trying to put the muscle back on. You can imagine you don't look too sort of like weak if you're meant to be this hench buff arsehole, But yeah, I think, and also the outfits he was given, he didn't have to sort of expose as much. So I wonder if like he did hit the gym, but it just still wasn't that impressive. So they put a breastplate on him. Maybe.
Yeah. It was kind of like hitting the gym in your 20s to hitting the gym in your 40s or 50s. You're like, yeah, you look good for your age, but you still look your age.
You got your dad bod. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's actually, unlike Immortals and 300, there was very little of the sort of sexual, like overdone sexual stuff. In those films, it's like, it's basically porn at times. It's like you don't have that with this, so I guess that's a positive.
I think they were really trying to keep that PG-13 rating going. I think it was PG. So hence why, like, for some reason, the Egyptian gods have gold blood.
Oh, yeah.
So they were like, oh, yeah. Which is a little bit more of like a Greek thing, more than Egyptian. Really, they don't really talk too much about their blood. But yeah, I think that's to do with the ratings. You can't really have... Although Hathor's walking around in pretty much a bikini the whole time. True. And Zaya's got the low-cut dresses going on. So they got some sexual stuff going on, but definitely nothing... it's kid-friendly, as opposed to 300 and Immortals with, basically porn, essentially.
But also unnecessary porn, especially in Immortals. Yeah. That scene is completely unnecessary for the film. But it's... anyway, we're not talking about that film.
We're not getting back into Immortals.
No. It haunts me to this day.
We closed the book on that one, boys.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have one more thing I kind of liked. I like the design of Ra's sun barge, like the ship he flies in the sky, and fights Apophis on. I was like, I thought that looked pretty cool. It had like a kind of like a semi-divine, but also like space look about it. And I thought that looked somewhere where for me, like the special effects and the practical effects looked legit. And then you see Ra himself, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
that was where the effort vanished.
No, I agree though. Saying that I don't know anything about the mythology around it, I went, wow, that's like a sort of ancient Egyptian space station, which is pretty cool. And then who's at the helm? Barbarossa. That's brilliant. Yeah. Like that, this works. I love this. And I kept sort of going, is this canon, or like is this in it? Is this part of the Egyptian mythology?
There's a thing where Ra does travel across the sky every day, and every day he fights this. So Apophis. So Apophis is meant to be like a serpent, like a big viper. Instead, he looks like that thing, like an earthworm out of Dune or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was a bit weird how you have that. But I guess they were going for like Apophis, instead of being just a big snake, he's like this world-ending, just shit. So
I thought the design of that was quite good because it's mostly smoke, and then when you start seeing the teeth come out, and then you're like, oh shit, this is quite an intense. There's a lot going on there, but then also quite disappointing that he just gets shot a few times by Ra, and that's it. And he's like,
by the world's smallest bolts of fire as well.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to be any sweet spot either. Like to like you need to hit this certain part of him to get him to bugger off. Seems like Ra could have been like off his tits, just like drunk, just be like, just shoot him anywhere. He'll fuck off after a couple. Like it just seemed a little bit too easy at some points.
You'd think after whatever it is, 2 million days, that Apophis would come up with a different strategy. Like he just does the same thing.
No, it's like the Blackadder, like the World War One joke, where they're like, "Well, we've done it 2 million times, but they won't expect it the 2 millionth first."
Yeah.
That's when Set actually comes up and kills him. He's like, "Oh, thank Christ!"
Yeah.
Thank you. And then Horus is like, "I got your spear back, Granddad." Or father, granddad? No, father, the granddad.
Granddad,
got your spear back, and he's like, "Fuck off, man! I'm done with this. I don't want to fight that bloody snake again."
He was like, it was a really weird bit. He was like halfway to the afterlife. He was sort of in transit, and he was like, "Oh no, wait, no, we still need you. Come back.
Only you can do this." You're like, "No, just hold the spear, mate.
Just
anyone can
point and shoot. This isn't difficult."
And that's a spoiler alert. That's what in lots of the myths, that's what Set ends up doing. He ends up getting that role.
Oh, really?
Yeah. After he's defeated by Horus, he gets that job. So they go, "All right, you didn't get to be king of all the world. Bad luck, but that's all right. You can go shoot bolts at this snake or battle this snake every day." And he's like, "Okay, I guess that's what I'm doing now."
In Greek mythology, is it Apollo who's pulling the sky across? Like
I thought that was Helios. Potentially.
So it's interesting how similar the mythology is. The mythos.
You have the same thing in Norse mythology as well, when it's being pulled away from a giant wolf that's chasing them. And then when Ragnarok happens, I think it's Haki is the one. It's kind of like, it's either Haki or Fenrir. They kind of sort of toss it about between them. But one of the wolves catches up with the sun and eats it, and then that's meant to be like the first sign of Ragnarok happening. Like when the end of days goes, the sun goes. And so... I guess that all mythologies just had this thing about having the sun like an existential peril, like every day.
Yeah.
Something will murder it at some point, and we're all going to be there when it happens.
I guess if they see it as a giant flame, and when they're coming up with this stuff, they're looking how flames are obviously going to run out eventually. So this one must run out eventually, which it will at some point. That's going to happen.
Yeah, they're
they're not wrong, And also, what is it? It takes, I think, I remember from school, something terrifying, like you have 7 minutes of sunlight before we know that the sun's gone out.
Yeah.
So that would be like the beginning of Ragnarok. Like, it'll be like, oh, okay, Fenrir's got it.
And then it ends pretty quickly as well. Like, after that 7 minutes, it's basically all over. There's not there's not like a long, drawn-out Ragnarok, story, end of the world storyline we can do.
Yeah, you haven't got time to run around the streets and bang your neighbours or beat them up, whichever you need to do. Just go crazy.
This is turning into The Purge.
Yeah.
We're switching into different movie reviews. We were talking about costumes earlier as a positive, and I agreed with you on the whole, but there was one dude, and I can't remember his name. He's the guy who becomes like a horny... The guy with the horns, sorry. The guy with the horns. What's the warthog guy called?
He's got a name in credits, but no one ever says it.
Whoever he is, him in his human-ish form at the beginning looks like an extra with the wrong outfit on. He just looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're clearly a baddie, but like you look so like cut and pasted into the shot. So yeah, anyway, that was my first pet peeve of the whole thing. Apart from Beck's character, obviously.
Oh my god.
Beck in general was just like so and which is the same because I did think that Nikolai Costa-Waldau, is that his last name? I can never remember. I thought he was quite good and was quite charismatic, and then they just got a less charismatic guy to follow him around the entire time. Because it would have been more fun if the mortal was a bit more of like, I don't know, like more down on his luck, wasn't kind of good at everything, was a bit, maybe a bit more funny, a bit more fun, and then you'd have Nikolai as the kind of hero. But it's like they wanted two heroes, and one of them is cool and one of them isn't. So it just really highlights how uncool Beck was throughout pretty much the whole thing, despite his ability to survive every hit he got thrown at him, whereas the gods were dropping like flies. But yeah, I think Beck was just... I mean, Aladdin would have been better, so...
Yeah.
At least we get a few tunes out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how like kings in like the 17th century and whatnot would have like court dwarfs with them to make them look more taller and more impressive? Do you think they put Beck in the film to make Nikolai look like a much better and heroic and funny individual by having someone the polar opposite just next to him?
Oh, it definitely worked.
Yeah, it's like he could be as bad as this person. You know?
That was in his like contract when Nikolai signed on. He was like, okay, I'll do it, but I need someone else to be near me at all times who is just worse at everything, so I can look cool.
Oh man, I remember when Will, when you got in touch and said, hey, we should do this film, my immediate thought was, okay, I remember watching, because I already saw it once before this for obvious reasons, and I was like, I remember Beck being the absolute most insufferable piece of shit, and I remember that, and I was like, okay, maybe it was because I watched it a while ago. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe he's aged well as a character, or maybe I've misremembered some things. And the whole way through the movie, I was like, this guy is terrible. He's just so bad, and he's unfunny. He's got like confidence where he shouldn't, and he's back talking gods and all that. You're like, I don't know. His acting is not great. Like his girlfriend or wife dies. We don't know which one. If they're married or not. She's dead, and he's like, okay, I guess I'll just keep doing the same thing. He's like, Zaya, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then like every scene is like, okay, I'm gonna do this now. I'm gonna do this like a 5-year-old, but like always happy and always upbeat. I'm like, dude, your wife is dead. Like,
yeah. He seemed to he didn't really get over it quickly, but he just didn't really react. He was like, "Oh no,
100%."
Well, I'll go see the god. I'll figure this out.
And Hathor's like, "Oh, I'll go talk to your dead girlfriend in the underworld," which is pretty rare, by the way. Like, do you want to get excited about this? He's like, "Zaya, it's me. Hello." You're like, "Fuck,
yes,
dude!
it's still
Like,
me, yeah.
give us something."
It's so true. He had so many opportunities. I feel like this film for the actor could have been a real sort of breakout where he could really... He's got loads of lines, got loads of airtime, and he just fucked it up entirely. He was so wooden. There was nothing. And also, just in terms of plot, at the end, Horus goes off to save Hathor, I guess, and he leaves he leaves Beck in charge of all of Egypt. Not any of the gods
such a bad idea.
that he
Such
has
a bad
around
idea.
him. He's like, oh no, I'll give it to the mortal who I've been slagging off the entire film. And it's like,
Whose only profession was as a thief, not really a great prime minister or head of state to look after an entire.
what administrative skills does he have? I want to see that CV.
I want like the post credit scene where Horus comes back and he's like, so where's the treasury gone? And Beck's just there like with these massive sacks of gold behind him, like, I didn't see anything.
I love like you said, how Osiris goes and gets Hathor. There's been enough time for the conflict and the battle and all that to ease up. Horus has got a new outfit. He's nice and clean. Everyone's like ready for his ceremony, and also just like administering the kingdom. How long has Hathor been down in the underworld? And Horus is like, I might go see a friend. Like, she's probably terrified. She's having a shit time. And he gets down there and she's like, oh, my love, I bet you hurried straight away to get me. You're like, oh, yeah. I didn't wait several weeks to sort my shit and then come and get you.
I don't think you can blame Horus because it's Beck who doesn't show him the bracelet. It all comes back to Beck. He had the bracelet with him the whole time, and he's like,
that's right.
You're
yes.
gonna love this. You'll never guess. I kind of forgot about this, but I still have this bracelet. If you want to go get your girlfriend, I know you literally had a one wish with your father who could have done anything for you, and you brought back my girlfriend, but I've waited this long to show you that I can help you get your girlfriend back. He's just a terrible person.
He's just there like, hey Horus, you know how I got my girlfriend back? And Horus is there like, wait, no, I got her back for you. And he's like, yeah, no. Now it's your turn to go get yours back, right? Go on, get moving.
I love the scene. Actually, this was probably a positive overall. Once I'd kind of got past some of the graphics, I'm sure we'll come back to this, but the sort of the enlarged gods compared to the humans, I didn't think that's aged very well in terms of CGI. But the one time I actually thought the scene worked quite well was when the two snake sisters decided to descend on that temple. I thought that was actually quite cool. I quite enjoyed how they had to dip down below this, and then they went over the cliff and all that stuff. Like, that was quite a good scene, actually. I thought that played quite well.
That looked really good. The snakes looked legit. I was like, this is awesome. And then they're like, oh, we're going to have that chariot scene where Beck and his missus escape, and you're like, that's obvious green screen, mate. Like, that's amateur level.
I did think, like when I saw like the enlarged gods, I was like, oh my god, what are they doing? And then I kept thinking, how many scenes are there going to be where there's loads of little humans and big gods? And actually, there weren't that many, and they must have kind of clocked on. Oh no, that looks crap. We can't.
They
do
very
that.
quickly found other gods to hang out with, and because then they got the goddess of love and the goddess of wisdom, so that they didn't have to do that weird shot where they're looking at each other in weird way. But it was also very obviously just CG'd. It wasn't like the Lord of the Rings style where they're in the same room but shot cleverly, so it just looked like neither of them were in the same place and not really looking at each other but looking near each other. I kind of like the idea behind them being big, but I think it just came across as weird, and they were only a little bit bigger, and then they just looked like normal people as well, so it was just a weird effect, I think.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Patrick, because that we've got evidence from Lord of the Rings that it can be done well. Like, you can have that disproportioned height and film it and have it look good. But this is just CG, and I think just a shortcut. They were just like being a bit lazy, be like, oh, we'll just do it in CG, that'll be fine. And it's looked weird, but it's good that you don't get too many of those scenes.
Yeah,
which
I mean,
nice.
even if you, the whole film I was comparing it to 300 because Gerard Butler was in both, and the 10-year gap, and I thought Xerxes Xerxes is bigger in 300.
Mm-hmm.
That works. I enjoyed that. I never thought, oh, that looks a bit tacky. Yeah. Whereas in this, I feel they didn't. I feel like maybe the film was too bright. If they'd made everything a little bit darker, like in 300 and Immortals, it wouldn't have been so obvious. I don't know. I'm no cinematographer though, so
that was one of my complaints about Immortals, though, that it was too dark. But maybe it was a good thing. If they brightened it up, it would look like this, and I'd go, "Oh god, that's worse. Put it back, darken it again."
I feel a weird thing that happened, or probably the coolest thing about this film you don't get to see, is the fact that you hear about a rebellion of like many gods against Set, and a whole war is fought. And you don't see any of it, except like, at the very end. You're like, that sounds a shit ton better than what we got.
Yeah, that's true.
That would have been
Like,
really cool.
That sounds like what we want to see.
Like a rebellion, but led by gods against this other god, and you just running around. But yeah, no, I think they just wanted it to be that kind of hero's journey, which it kind of was, but kind of wasn't as well. But yeah, that would have been amazing, because they didn't mention any of the other gods. It was just the wife. And then, because there was no other gods at that temple or that city that Set attacked, it was just the wife, I think.
There were six gods standing when Set lands his weird scarab chariot thing.
Were those gods?
There's 6 gods.
Because they
there.
sucked.
Yeah, I know. When they landed, you're just like, oh, here we go. Here comes the big boss. Oh,
Yeah,
it's done.
he just wrecked all of them.
He does. It's like for me. It was like as big a letdown as like when Revenge of the Sith, when like Palpatine does his like Honda twirl and like offs 4 dudes, and then you're just like, what the fuck? You're meant to be Jedi.
They all
Like,
die immediately.
what the hell?
so true.
Oh man, no, but they are gods, because like they're the same height as him, and you see like gold.
Oh, of course,
blood,
yeah.
like come out when he stabs him.
They're just gods that hadn't picked up a sword before that day.
I mean, it explains the first scene, because in the first scene, when Set just kind of goes a bit crazy, I was thinking, come on, there's like 10 of you, just kill him. But now seeing their performance in that scene, I'm like, oh, okay, right, so you're just shit. So okay, you need to you have no hope against this guy.
But they're like, oh, I'm not going to kill you now at the coronation, which is my best opportunity. No, I'm going to rebel later on. Like, why just off him there when his back's
Yeah,
turned?
they said, one of them says like, "Oh, we will resist, but now is not the time. Now is definitely the time. This is the right moment to do it, when he has least amount of power."
100% the time. Jesus.
Gods are not smart in this.
I would say the one thing about the golden blood, at first I thought, oh, that's a bit weird, but actually I'm quite happy they did include that, because when he takes his eyes, I was thinking, if you did that with blood, oh god, like even if I know it would change the rating, but I wouldn't want to see that. Like, that was too much. But when the blood was gold, I was like, oh, okay, I can watch that. I felt it was more palatable.
Yeah, that looked cool.
And I go, oh, okay, I see what they've done there. So does that happen in the myth then?
The taking of the eyes?
Yeah.
I think it's like a side story I think, or one of the versions. This is where it's a little bit hazy for it. There's, instead of Set and Horus like fighting a battle or like a war against each other, it's more like they have to, like, they get judged. They're like, okay, because Set kills Osiris and all that, and Isis, who is Osiris's wife, sister wife, has conceives Horus, and then Horus grows up as a young man into like, I need to avenge my father and all that, and then because by this time Set's been ruling for X amount of years, and then he's like, I'm going to challenge you, and we're going to, because it's Egyptian, instead of really battling, it's more like we're going to go and go to the courts and have a panel of judges decide who should be king. After we do a few challenges and all that. And in the end, the last thing is they go, oh, we should actually ask Osiris, the Lord of the Underworld, because that's where he goes now. We should ask him who should rule. And then Osiris is like, oh, obviously my son, he should rule. You're like, fuck, talk to him first then. Like, you don't have to do all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And Set's like, oh, okay, I accept this judgment. I'll go hang out with Ra and shoot down Apophis every day. But there's a lot of other stuff.
I feel like this would lead to like a very good like TV show concept where it's meant to be like a crime court show, and it's just like settling disputes between gods. And you can put all these kind of like tales in and just have them being like really wacky and outlandish, and then the judge is there like it could be immortal, just there like, for God's sake, stop.
It's like Judge Judy.
Yeah.
I did like that sounds like a great idea, because one of the bits I did really like is the weird, like when they're in the underworld, in the like that spinning gate that chooses whether you go to heaven or hell, and the like the rows of old men who are just like, what did you bring? I really liked them. I thought they were really funny. I like the idea you get to the end, you're about to go through like the pearly gates or the Egyptian equivalent, and there's just these stuffy ancient old men that are just like reviewing what you've done and what you're up to. And like I like them. I thought that was quite a cool. That all the underworld stuff was like, it looked really interesting, and I liked Anubis. He was very cool, and I liked that he wasn't a bad guy. He was just like, he was kind of a good guy. He was just a dude that was just the wandering around. So I liked all that stuff.
Just like a shepherd.
Yeah. That was really good.
Yeah, that was good. I agree. And I thought the CGI wasn't too shit there either.
It was dark. It was dark down there. That's why.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It would have, if everything had been toned down a little bit, it would have probably added to it. Another pet peeve of mine is that when Apophis comes down the Nile and eventually gets defeated, does that mean half the Nile was eaten, or does he throw it back up? Like, what happens there?
Your guess, mate.
That would be quite cool if they said at the beginning the Nile, it like did a bird's eye shot, and it looked like the Nile was way longer than it should be, and then it ends with it actually being partially destroyed, and that's why so much of Egypt is desert. That would be quite cool. They didn't do it, but that would have been cool.
That would be, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they probably just would have been like, oh, we just got some waters of creation from Ra and chucked it back in, and then everything's all Gucci.
Nice. Just get the map builder out, to start.
Maybe not if Beck was in charge. If he's running all of Egypt, maybe he probably didn't get anything fixed.
Yeah.
That fucking guy. God, I could talk all day about Beck. He's so annoying. One pet peeve about him, one of many. When he jumps into the CGI pit of gold on the back of the cart, and then is sneaking into the pyramid, so he's going down that chute.
Oh my god, yeah.
And he's like, "Whoa!" You're like, dude, you're meant to be sneaking in. Like, shut the fuck up, like, dude.
Also, like I need to bring up the wagons they were bringing the gold in, like pulled by the elephants, and they were just like dump trucks.
Yeah.
Where they all like tipped up, and they even like had like the actual just look of them, and I was like, I feel like I know where they got these from.
It's so true. But also when he gets down to that bridge, like how lucky does he have to be? I mean, when the thing starts like slicing and stuff, like he's not a god or a demigod. At least in Immortals, we knew he was the son of a god. In this one, he's just a standard guy, and he's
just great.
He's just a ninja. Like, where did he learn that? Like on the mean streets of Cairo or Alexandria or wherever.
But you see, Will, he was always going to be fine because he had the instructions. He had the plans, and he was just reading it like, yes, vague clue. I can handle that.
It's so true.
And they're like, a third bridge. No one said anything about a third bridge. You're like, why not?
Yeah.
Like, these are the official plans. What if what's it, Urshu, I think the builder guy, who he was a wasted actor. That was a shame.
He's such a good actor, isn't he? But what a waste.
What if he's like, I need to go down and check on that eye for a tick. I better have my instructions so I make sure I don't get shish kebabbed on my way down. Oh, a third bridge. I don't remember putting that in. You're like, fucking write it. Of course it'd be written down. Like, these are the blueprints.
Yeah. And also, how lucky is that he had like a flashbang? Like, I felt like the Eye of Osiris has became like a flash grenade. Whenever he needed to sort of get out of a situation, scorpions, henchmen, whatever, just bang, and then off he goes. That just seems.
Why does he go and kiss his missus when he flashbangs everybody?
That was so weird. Like, just run, dude.
And she's like, absolutely, let's have a kiss. You're like, fucking get out, let's go.
Arguably,
Let's
if they had run straight away, they probably would have been far away enough that she wouldn't have got shot. So 100% Beck's fault that she died. And also, she gets shot. He immediately pulls the arrow out, which is not what you're supposed to do. She probably died from the bleeding. Presumably she probably got shot in the heart or something, but she lived long enough. So I think it's his fault as well. He deserved everything he got.
Also, for a master builder, what a shot! Like, where did that come from? And then he misses the second shot, like
horrendously.
Yeah, like out of nowhere. That was just very bad luck. I thought there was lots of like anthologies coming out at like other films. So like, you know, when after a while I sort of got the idea that Seth was trying to build, like, he'd turn into a transformer. It felt like he was sort of trying to add different accoutrements to him, and then suddenly it was literally like Transformers when they just turned into the things, and I was like, okay, how does that sort of work? And then I thought also the tower was like Sauron's tower, you know, up to the gods, and then when it crumbles.
I liked Jeffrey Rush's phrase, "Oh, if you built it any higher, it would be in my way." And I was like, that's really annoying. Imagine doing that. You build the biggest monument, and your dad's like, it's nearly in my way. Don't like that.
Yeah. To divert his journey around the Earth, which is flat.
Is that did the Egyptians think the Earth was flat? Because I swear all ancient civilizations all figured out it was round quite easily.
Yeah, I think it was maybe the 1st century BC. There was a astrologer named Ptolemy who was able to map the sky, and I think his theory was like, yep, this definitely means the Earth is round. Because I think of the way he tracked the sun. I might be wrong, probably am, but I think it was probably not as early, not before history like this film, but there was definitely the understanding that the Earth was round. I think they thought it was a lot smaller though than it was, and mainly just after like India, it was just ocean, just like a lot of ocean. So I think the whole flat Earth thing kind of. At least the first theories was, I think, 1st century BC, but I'm probably wrong on that.
Okay.
Did you guys also think that when they were in the swamp and they went to go find the God of Wisdom, it was like, is this going to become Star Wars? Are they going to find Yoda? Because it was very like Dagobah style. And I guess, you know, the wise one is quite funny that's where they found him. But it was getting more, it's like, this does not look like Egypt at all. Like, I guess maybe in their world, it's like they reign over the whole world, so it's not just actually Egypt, so they can go further afield. But I was like, this is getting more and more Star Wars style, and I was really hoping that he was just going to be, rather than living in this nice like hidden place where he's reviewing lettuce or whatever he was doing, like he was just like lost and was in a hut and going, yeah, I don't want to leave. That would have been a lot more funny.
I love that he was reviewing lettuce though. It's so funny.
Bringing us to the swamp. I noticed something last night, actually, when Hathor is like telling Beck, she's like, "Oh, you go get me some water. I command you," and like tries to hypnotize him, make him do that, and he's like, "You guys are all the same." Blah blah blah. And she's like, "What?" And she says, I actually took the quote down. She's like, "I can make any man, woman, god, or beast do my bidding unless the heart belongs to another." So she can basically control everybody. That's how she gets those snakes to burn themselves up and all that. Why didn't she try doing that to Set back at the coronation? Because he doesn't love his wife, obviously. Take her wings and all that. And at the very least, why didn't she do that to all the other gods or all the other people at the coronation? Be like, all right, everybody, just all pile on Set. Let's do that. Like nothing. It was a really weird thing that sort of stuck out, and I was like, huh. that's a bit weird.
Bit of an Eagles of Lord of the Rings style, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, you could have just flown to Mordor.
But the Eagles are doing their own business. They're like, mate, we'll come when we want. Like, we're doing Eagle stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They're not like an Uber. Anyway, this is not a Lord of the Rings podcast as much as I'm sure all four of us would love it to be.
Oh, it'd be so good.
Tell you what I did like. I did like Set's plan of hunting down gods. That's what, as you said, would have made it cool if we saw the rebelling gods. And then when you realise the reason he's doing this is trying to find all the gods and steal bits of them to turn himself into a bigger god. I thought that was cool. Although I thought was dumb was the fact that Beck was able to pry off, like him assembling all this stuff was like very like Iron Man or like even Terminator or something, where he's like being built into this uber god, and then Beck just gets grabbed and he just like unhooks the eye with just a normal knife and then throws it away. And I was like, is that how easy it is to pry that stuff off him? Like, he was a lot of effort to get it on you, and they were like, yeah, and you can just pry it off and that'll be fine.
Well, maybe it was just a rush job.
He needs to speak to the manufacturers and get a refund, I think.
Guess what's the warranty on this suit?
But no, I also loved Set's plan and his hunt for the Infinity Stones, basically.
Oh yeah,
the god equivalent of
that
them.
is basically what he was doing.
Yeah, they even all had like the colours of them as well. It was great.
Yeah. Although he also didn't use them. Like when he got the God of Wisdom's brain, but was still exactly the same once he did that. It's not like he got smarter or there was any indication he got better at anything. He just got wings, essentially. That was the only thing he gained which actually made him any different was just the wings. He didn't get smarter. I don't think he used the eye. Like he didn't do that weird telescopic eye that Horus did a bunch of times. I don't think they did.
Yeah.
But
I don't think he did. No, he basically was like, "I'm gonna fly at you now."
Yeah, that's basically it. Which surely there's easier way to get wings. Like he's a god. Like I'm sure there were other ways he could have got wings, but then went on this massive campaign to get everything else and wings, and then just use wings.
I mean, it's a shame for me how like almost vanilla of a villain he was. Like, because in the myths and all that, Seth, he kind of knows that he can't like go toe to toe with Osiris in terms of like, I can't just fight you one on one. He's much more sneaky. I mean, he's like the god of like confusion and stuff like that. So he's very cunning, and that's how he's able to he is able to defeat Osiris by tricking him to go in this box. Which I've done a whole episode on that, but tricks him to get in a box and defeats him that way. And the idea is that a lot of the gods are just like, fuck, we don't know what to expect out of this guy. Everybody else go like, oh, I fight with the spear, or I'm Horus, I'm really good at seeing stuff, and I'll fight you out front and all that sort of stuff. While Set's really cunning, he's really shifty and keeps everybody on their toes. But in this movie, Gerald's just like, mate, it's my turn now. I want Daddy to know that I did that. And you're like, all right.
Yeah,
cool.
He was just kind of generic villain-esque. I mean, I guess they were trying to get him to be quite like Leonidas, kind of that sort of thing, but then angry, like, evil Leonidas. They didn't want to make him too, because it would have been cool if he was like I guess as he is in the actual mythology, more like I guess a Loki, that kind of thing. Like he's more tricksy, and that would have been maybe cooler and more interesting. And I did think that, because you said it earlier, but the guy, I wrote down his name, but I think it's Rufus Sewell, who's the guy who's the builder. That actor's great, and I bet that he would have made a fantastic set if he was put in charge, because he's quite intimidating and like can do that kind of deranged, scary look. Whereas Jared Butler's just a bit much, and not actually intimidating, scary. He's just buff, and that's all it was, which isn't as exciting, I don't think.
No. I remember that actor out of freaking
Knight's Tale.
A Knight's Tale, yeah.
Oh, Count Adhemar.
Yeah.
He was great. I was like, man, you're menacing. This must be the Heath Ledger podcast at the moment. But he was he was great. I was like, mate, you look menacing as all hell. I was like, damn. So he would have been great as a villain. But he kind of was a villain, but he's just like a builder. And you're like, as if he wouldn't follow whoever's in charge. Like he goes, mate, I'll build stuff.
And also, why did they grab him at the end? Because they're like, oh, we need him to get to the top of the tower, but it was just a lift, and then Horus climbed the outside. So they didn't. I don't know why they got him.
Because they can't read the instructions.
Oh yeah. Well, they don't write anything down, so there's
Yeah.
no instructions.
I got a bit confused when Set gets up to see his dad, and he says, you know, I want you to take over the spaceship and like kill the worm thing every day. And he goes, no. I want to go. I don't want to die. I want to live down there and like be awesome forever. And he's like, well, you can't do that. It's like, well, I guess I'll have to eat the underworld then. And I'm like, sorry?
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
What, are you just going to get like a knife and fork and just sort of dig into this? How's that going to work? Like, I didn't get that at all. And then when the builder's like, oh yeah, this is afterlife armor, like, good luck. And he's like, yeah, but there's no afterlife if your boss wins, so what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, I'm so confused by that part of the plot.
It was really weird how the whole afterlife thing, like the threat was Set's like, oh mate, everyone needs to pay to go to the afterlife now, and he's not Lord of the Underworld, like that's not, he's got no say over that. Like you'd be like, it probably is because Osiris turns out to be the Lord of the Underworld when he dies, so like he could just as easily, Xayah could have gotten to the front gates and like, oh, the old blokes are like, oh, what did you bring, Dal? Oh, let's shake you down and see. And then Osiris like, oh, by the way, whatever Set was spouting up top, don't worry about that. Like, Underworld's on me. I run the show here. There's no cover charge. Just come in and party. Like, you'll be right.
Yeah, because that confused me as well, because at first Osiris is like, you know, you don't have to pay to get in, Afterlife's open to everyone, and you're like, cool. And then Set takes over and he's like, no, it's a subscription model now, it's pay to enter. And then later in the film, Set goes, well, I can't change, like, being king doesn't mean I can change for how, like, you get into the underworld. And I was like, but you did it in, like, the very opening of the film, so clearly you had to.
Yeah, that was really strange. I also thought the subliminal messaging of like, yeah, liberalism, everything's great. Oh no, capitalism. You got to pay to get in now. I was like, oh, I see what you're
from
doing.
From a $100 million
capitalism
movie.
Bad.
Yeah,
aim to make money.
Good.
Yeah, which basically glorifies the people who are in charge, who are
right?
literally gods and will get infinite amount of money and don't care. Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed message, isn't it? Really.
And who's at the top job because his dad was in the top job before as well.
Definitely.
Or you were a thief that randomly helped out some guy and have no qualifications for running a kingdom, but get put in charge anyway.
That's the equivalent of a venture capitalist, basically. So it's kind of, it fits in the economic model.
Yeah. So also, was the idea that, so it was like the whole, because I know the whole afterlife Egyptian mythology is that you weigh your heart against a feather, and then if it's lighter, you're allowed in. So it was the idea that Osiris was letting everyone in, then Set only let rich people in, and then it's Horus who went, maybe we should just let good people in, and, you know, don't let other people in. Because I assume that's kind of what it was, or was that what Osiris had before? I couldn't really... it felt like that was a kind of a cool idea, that's where this came from. But they didn't really... Yeah. They kind of hinted at it, but they were, like, obviously nervous to get too, like, theological about it, which would have been much cooler, I think.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because he's at the beginning, because Brian Brown is like, yep, all are welcome. He still accepts the offerings though, doesn't he? He's like a rich man, a poor man or poor person, you know, all are welcome. He doesn't quite abolish. He doesn't go, you shouldn't give me stuff though.
Yeah.
So that's a funny little pickup. So I think in the end, Horus is like, yep, everyone's fine. You don't need to pay for anything. But like, why would they care? Why would they care about gold? You're a god. Like, that's,
what are you going to use it for?
I get Set's motivation to like conquer the lands and rule everything, but yeah, seemed very strangely attached to treasure and all that.
It also seems like he could have... It would feel like it would have made more sense for him to say, if you want to get into the afterlife, you have to serve me. Not just make money, because that guy that you see who gets into it, who's obviously just some rich prick, like, I can't imagine Set likes those people either, like these mortals who are just really greedy and stuff. Like, I think it would have been cool if he was like, you are only able to get into the afterlife if you do everything I say. You have to serve me. And that's how he controls everyone. He does it by everyone's like, oh, like, all I care about is what happens to me after I die, so I have to serve this guy. It feels weird for him to say, no, you just need to make a lot of money. Because a lot of his soldiers, I know he gave a bunch of gold to his soldiers, but there'll be soldiers that won't make a lot of money that he would probably really like, but because of his new rule, wouldn't get into the afterlife. So it's a weird reason to look at it and to, because obviously, yeah, as you say, why does he give a shit about money? Like he's already conquered everything. Like he doesn't pay for anything, presumably. So I don't know why he needs all this money.
Bizarre.
It's a very bizarre
Well,
film.
speaking of his soldiers, one little nitpick.
Here we
I
go.
found-
I was waiting when the soldiers are going to come up.
No. I'm going to be really quick on this. It's just like when he's at the point where he's addressing them before he goes and fights Nephthys and the rebelling gods, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to chuck gold all over you, have you feel whatever." Why do they still have those shiny shields that they used to defeat Horus? Because that's only blinds Horus, and everyone's like, and they clearly break because Horus broke. That's one. It's like shattered to pieces. Why would you be going into battle? Like, why would that be your standard kit, like a glass shield? This isn't like Skyrim where glass armor is pretty fucking good. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like it's so brittle. Like, why would that be your standard kit?
Do we ever see them really fight though? Because there's a little bit of fighting, but you never really see that. Like normally they're kind of there, and then Set runs in and then does all the work for them. But like there's a little bit of fighting in that like siege you see, but you don't really see them do anything. And they're weird. I mean, they're weird soldiers anyway with all the red armor. Like I felt like they were.
I was thinking Lannister armor.
Yeah,
That's what I
they
kept thinking.
It was a bit strange. And also, they're desert soldiers, but they're in really thick, heavy armor with faceplate. Like, that would be miserable in the desert.
Yeah.
Like, if they made them look more like deserty warriors, that would have been cooler. But that's a horrible armor for desert warriors.
100%. I think any Crusader army, like, going to a day, is just like, ugh, awful.
Yeah. I felt very bad for the citizens of Egypt throughout the film because they just had such a rough bargain. I know they always do, obviously, apart from when Osiris is in charge. But like everything goes tits up, and there's literally nothing they can do, and their only ambassador to the gods is Aladdin, but shit.
Yeah.
And it's like you just have to accept this. That suddenly the Nile, where so many people are working, maybe bathing, suddenly Apophis is just coming up and just eating you, and you have no warning. This is just happening. It's like, what the fuck is going on? I just feel bad.
That was bad. Speaking of the citizens, I felt weird at the beginning how everything is perfect. Egypt's having a great time. The people are content. They're happy. How come there's theft? How come that Beck needs to be a thief and his wife Zaya doesn't have the means to survive? Like they're basically poor and impoverished. How is that so if everyone supposedly is having a great time?
Yeah, the economic situation is a bit vague.
It's also not clear. I don't get why Set thought that the kingdom that his brother had built was bad, because he's like talking. He's like, oh, it's like he says like 10,000 years of peace, and what have you got to show for it? It's like 10,000 years of peace. That's the thing. That's a pretty good thing. And then he goes and talks to his dad.
It's a sign of a good
he's
ruler.
Like, Osiris doesn't know how to rule a place. All he's done is basically make it a wonderful paradise. And then he takes over and makes it better because he conquered some land and made a big statue. Like he doesn't really have like an ethos of why the world is bad at the moment, other than he has to go live in the desert. So it would have been a bit better if he was just like, if it had been more like a realistic world where there was like the rich and the poor and there was like a corrupt system. But no, it was like as if Egypt was this paradise, and he was like, no, I can do it better by just making it much worse, and then eventually swallowing the underground and destroying everything. Like there was no fight of ideals.
But any time a rich person is like, I've got your best interest in mind, never the case.
Yeah. Can I also ask you, what did you guys think of the Sphinx? Because I hated it. I really didn't like it. Looked kind of the CG was kind of cool, but like in it kind of not being a real animal, and then when he gets it, and then the God of Wisdom gets it wrong, the riddle, like they get him for this entire purpose just to do this, and he gets it wrong a bunch of times. And also that the Sphinx is okay with you getting it wrong and guessing again, which I don't think is normally the way these things normally work.
Yeah, when he said like get it right or die, like he really exaggerates the dying part of it. He was like, I'm just gonna smack you about for a bit.
Yeah, these gods who can clearly take a bit of smacking around and like.
It was when they got it right though, and the Sphinx was like, oh no, and then just like dissolved, and I was just sat there like,
It's
oh
such
no.
a dumb scene, and also at the end of that scene, he's trying to like drop the creation like fluid into the thing, and and then Set's argument is, "Oh, but do you know that Horus lied to you?" And in my head, I was like, "So the fuck what? You're a dick. Like this should happen. Even if he lied to me, I mean, it was a long shot anyway. I saw her die. Like this would be incredible if it happens. If it doesn't, I'm still going to stop you from being the megalomaniac you are." But no, he's like, "No." It's like, what are you doing?
Like you're not the better option set.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Beck.
Oh, man.
He's his priorities.
I hate Beck.
I don't know.
Oh my god.
I think if we just cut Beck out for this entire thing, it would have been so much better. We just followed Horus.
Really would have.
It would have been just... I mean, I get why they did it. They need, like, a human to be involved most of the time. But just...
why?
He's just exhausting.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, this kind of film can be successful. In my opinion, Clash of the Titans, pretty decent. Sam Worthington, he was all right. I didn't hate him.
Yeah.
This one, and
fun.
Immortals with the little kid at the end, there's just these characters that you just like, why are you here? Get out of the film. You do not need to be here. I don't know. Maybe it's a casting issue.
Nah, I think you're right. I think the movie's called Gods of Egypt.
Right?
Like, have more of that. Like, not Beck runs around with a god and talks shit when he shouldn't. But is too big for his britches the whole movie. Like, just less, whatever.
Yeah. Like when Hathor,
God, it's
Hathor
broken me.
turns up. And Beck doesn't even bat an eyelid. It's like, oh yeah, you're the goddess of love. That's fine. Oh, by the way, we need to go get this stuff. Like, you haven't caught up yet. We're going to do this now. And she's like, who the fuck are you? You're just a mortal. And I was like, yeah, exactly. Get in your place. That's the goddess of love right there.
Like, back in your box, Beck. Like, we take you places. You're not taking us anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I did like the continual way that all the gods were talking about, and even Ra was like, "Why have you got this? Why are you dragging around this weird mortal?" And then the god of wisdom's just like, "Oh, I thought it was a shaved baboon. I'm sorry, I didn't realize." I like the entire time there was so much contempt for Beck, which I appreciate, and I feel them. I understand where they're coming. Maybe that was the point. They wanted us to like associate ourselves with the gods, so they made the worst mortal ever, and made us wander around with them.
Yeah.
I did love how, at the end, when Horus is standing over Set, and Set's like, he's there like, you should spare me. I spared you all those years ago. And Horus is just like, yeah, but I'm not doing that mistake again. and
blasts him away. Yeah, I like that as well.
Whilst he's like spewing gold paint. There was so much gold on Jared Butler's face.
That was... I like the gold blood in most bits, but that bit was really distracting where you just saw it pooling behind him like he'd laid down on a bucket of paint or something. It was just like, that doesn't look like blood. It just looks dumb and silly. And
It also makes me wonder if there was ever going to be like a mortal that was just killing gods because like to siphon the blood so he could get rich out of it.
Harvest him.
I was like, that's a gold. That's an untapped
Put him in a
gold mine
bar
right
and
there.
just like start harvesting his organs. We can sell them.
Something like Hannibal Lecter do.
The gods of Egypt have to unite to stop like the god killer who's like harvesting their blood.
That's too good of a film.
Pitch that.
Yeah, that's too good.
Yeah, we're getting some good show ideas out of this episode, it seems.
Just scared, panicked gods pleading with like some serial killer who's getting their bodily fluids. Like that's pretty on point, I reckon.
That might be in the works already.
Well, considering how much that Jeffrey Dahmer show blew up, and shows like that, give it. I wouldn't be surprised. Netflix, they're throwing everything at the wall at the moment.
Yeah,
so
trying to keep their subscribers going.
Beautiful. All right. I think have we gotten? Is there anything? Parting points you guys want to bring up or anything like that, or discuss before we wrap this sucker?
I'm looking through my notes, but I think we've covered everything that was really annoying about it. So, I mean, I think it was not an absolutely awful film. I think it like in terms of like a whole story, it had a hero's journey of sorts. Like Horus, I guess, learned the importance of being nice, but he wasn't that nice. He wasn't like that much of a dick at the beginning. But I guess like the idea that he woke up after a hangover on the day of his coronation.
I think with Horus in the earlier parts, who was partying after the hunt and all that, and it was like, oh, Horus, naughty boy, you should be partying. I'm like, that's the kind of thing that's expected of a ruler in those cultures. Like, you do the hunt and you feast after the hunt. He's doing exactly what's required of the elite at that in that sort of culture. So everyone's like, "Oh, naughty horse!" I'm like, he's following it to a T, essentially. He's doing what's required. So that was a bit strange.
Except when suddenly he thinks he's about to be fondled by a slave, and it's Hathor. He's like, "Oh no, actually I'm fine." I'm like, "Okay, so you weren't saying that last night when you were in the massive sex orgy, but now you're awake." It's like, "Oh no, you wait."
None for me, thanks.
Also, I mean, surely he would have known because it was a big hand. It wasn't a tiny hand, which
Maybe he was expecting a man.
also makes the weird orgy night before a bit weirder. The fact that he's twice the size of everyone else in that room, so it's all a little weird. Yeah,
Some women are walking out of there bow-legged, like after that.
The ones
After
who
that
survived.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah. It's a good job the film started the day after and not the night before.
Yeah. No, the infirmary is just
You
packed.
know what? Like, Set should have referenced that. I think that would have been very credible reasons for him taking it.
Yeah. No, I thought that I got the measure of the film when the shiny shields were the thing that stopped the god of wind. So that was it. Some shiny shields. Oh, he's fucked. He can't see. Just wear some sunglasses. That was, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. No, but overall, I would say that this film in the cinema would have been pretty epic. I think I would have enjoyed it if I was like in a big screen, popcorn, all that kind of thing. I would have been like, oh, wow, this CGI, you know what I mean? Like, it would have worked much better. On my TV in my flat, didn't really have the same impact. And I think this kind of film works better in that scenario.
I think it wasn't the worst film in the world. Like, a lot of people are really giving it the business. But there's a lot of flaws with its writing, its pacing, its acting, CGI and all that. But it's not the worst movie going around. So, will I watch it again? Nah. You bet your bottom dollar. I'm done. I'm closing the book on this chapter.
Would you guys say better or worse than Immortals? If we keep doing this, we can start ranking all terrible historical films. What do we say?
Well,
where's this ranking? Better or worse?
For me, let's just say that Beck as a character was like watching.
You cannot get past Beck.
No, Beck as a character was like watching Theseus chop that wood. That's for an entire movie. that was me.
Jamie, what do you think overall? Like, would you say?
I'd say it's definitely one of the most film of its time. It's one of those films. No, but I actually did quite enjoy it. I do think I'd watch it again, funnily enough. It feels like, it's got all its flaws. But if it's one of those days when you need just like some mindless thing to watch, like in the background or while you're doing something, and that is probably might be something I would put on. It's bright, it's got good action, it's got something I can yell at periodically in the form of Beck. So I actually did enjoy it, and I think because you said like rankings, I would put it like in terms of just like as a film and like in terms of just like sheer enjoyment, I'd put it higher than Immortals.
Okay.
Despite the fact I think in terms of like its mythology elements, Immortals is most likely better at it overall. I just think that how it was made, this film was somehow better.
I love how you put that in as a caveat. Somehow
against
better.
all odds, it was better.
They should have that on there. That should be one of their reviews on the DVD. Somehow better.
No, I know what you mean. And actually, Jamie, whilst I wouldn't necessarily watch it again, I think because I didn't know the mythology, and I still don't know the Egyptian mythology like I know the Greek mythology, I wasn't so pissed off watching it as I was watching Immortals. Even though Immortals, Henry Cavill, probably a better actor than a lot of the others. You know what I mean? I actually thought I'd go the other way when I was thinking about this in the research, if you like. But I agree on balance because I didn't know enough. My ignorance saves this film from it being lower than the Immortals. For me.
That's a good
Can we
point.
put that on the review box as well? For it? Somehow better, and my ignorance has saved the experience.
Oh, beautiful. All right, well, I think that's probably wrapped today, guys.
Yeah, should we put this baby to bed?
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna pick I don't know what type of movie we're gonna pick next, but It's got to be bad. It's got to be bad movies.
Oh, definitely.
Bad movies are the best ones.
We can't do Lord of the Rings because we'll just be too fawning over the entire time.
No one wants to listen to us for like an hour and a half going, I really enjoyed this. This was such a good film.
Yeah, like it's new. Like,
Ooh.
you know what? I thought
Yeah.
Ian McKellen, hot take here, I think Ian McKellen was a great Gandalf. I think they went in a good direction. I know most people aren't saying
news.
this, but...
I don't want to be edgy or anything, but he didn't do too bad in the role. Oh, beautiful. Well, no doubt we'll come up with something ridiculously awesome, and we'll pick it apart like we did with this one. Thank you for listening, dear listeners, and catch us again on another bonus episode whenever we get up to it. It should be pretty sweet. We'll put links for all of our shows. Thanks again, Will and Patrick from the Cloak and Dagger podcast, and Jamie from Jamie History. Yes, we'll put all the links down there. Please listen, get into it, and hope you enjoy the rest of the day. And go watch Gods of Egypt and enjoy.
Tell us what you thought of Beck.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear from all the Beck fans out there.
All right. Cheers, guys. See ya.
Cheers.
See you.
Bye-bye.